So today what we are trying to find out is, if you have a 250cc bike, what would you rather have for the woods? Would you have a flywheel weight and a heavy crank like the YZ250FX we have here, or would you have a Rekluse on a proper motocross bike like the YZ250F? So the question I want to answer is, if you have a YZ250F, would you want to put a flywheel weight on it and give it the tractor kind of feel that the FX has, or would you rather put a Rekluse? Now granted, the FX also has a lower gear ratio, so the first gear on this is quite low, and my YZ250F I believe also has different sprockets that the first gear feels a little lower, but I feel the second gear on this is going to be more comparable to the first gear on the F. So what I want to do is ride both bikes and compare the second gear performance on the FX against the first gear performance on the F, and with the Rekluse, and see which one I like better. So this is a 2015, that's a 2014. That bike has a brand new piston. This one has a piston in with 40 hours on it now, so the performance on that is going to be a lot better, plus the fact that it has a lighter flywheel. It's going to rev up so fast. So the question is, would you rather have that fast revving, hard hitting power with the help from the Rekluse that prevents it from stalling? Okay, so let's try and answer that. I already warmed up both these bikes, so I like this bike. I have two FXs, but this one revs up a lot more cleaner for whatever reason. So to demonstrate how low the first gear is, I will do the same thing on the F, and you can tell, well, first thing on the F won't do anything because it's got Rekluse. It's very, very low, the first gear, which is great for doing hill climbs like this and not having to rev the motor. Like, I was going so slow that I couldn't static balance it enough. So let's try again. Like, you don't even need to use the clutch, you just give it the slightest amount of the throttle, or sometimes even no throttle, and you'll be fine. Now, how does it do in second gear? Once again, no clutch, just a bit of throttle, and it does it. So the question is, okay, it can do those hill climbs, woods without stalling. How does it feel when you're riding? Second gear. First is too low, so first is pretty much useless. You can feel the weight of the flywheel. You definitely feel that weight. It doesn't rev like instant. I'm in fourth, third, second. So yeah, the power is a little muted compared to the F. That's my reaction. But maybe it's what you need for like a woods, you know. But easy wheelies, let's see how the Rekluse feels. All right, so obviously the F is kickstart, but with the Rekluse hopefully you won't stall and you don't have to do so much kickstarting. So one thing I did on this Rekluse is after I first installed it and rode it, I didn't like it so much because the engagement point, according to the manual they gave, was a little too high for me. I didn't like how the engine had to rev up a little bit more to engage. I like it to lug a little sooner, so I just backed off 2 notches on from where they asked me to. The high compression on it makes it harder to kick. Hopefully as the piston wears out, it'll get better. So to explain, I put it in gear. Even now I feel I could bring down the engagement point even further down so you can see. It's okay, but could be a little better. So one of the disadvantages of bringing the engagement point sooner is it could stall. If you give it a fistful of gas from idle, from not doing anything, it'll stall. So that's like a compromise you got to do. But if you're just riding it normally, and I wanted a normal riding bike with just some help installing, because I still like to use the clutch a lot, but the Rekluse makes the clutch heavier because it's compressing the spring somewhat to begin with. So maybe this engagement point change is better for me because I like the bike a lot better now. I'm not feeling like I'm revving it out a little more than I needed to get the job done. So here I still feel in control, because otherwise what happens is the engine speed drops, the vehicle stops moving, and when the vehicle stops moving you cannot static balance it much, and if the engine RPM is higher, the engine becomes more responsive. So small changes in throttle will make larger changes in the engine speed, and that abrupt change in speed makes the bike a little harder to control. So what I would like is just before stall, like I don't want the bike to stall, obviously. You know, you don't want the bike to stall, you just want that help from the Rekluse. So I prefer that earlier engagement, and I really like this bike with the Rekluse now after I made that adjustment. So, and compared to the FX, this bike hits much harder. Build up a lot quicker. So what I'm thinking is, if you only have to start the bike one time, right, then you're riding, and okay, when you take a break with your mates, your friends, you do stop. But if it's just those occasional times, and if you're not constantly stalling in the woods, you know, trying to get over bike revs a lot cleaner. So something to consider. How would it do if I have to go over logs? I still like to use the clutch. So yeah, you can tell it doesn't want to stall mid-air. So I like it. I actually like it like this. The engagement is quick, instant. As soon as I give it gas, it wants to go. You know? So maybe for those you guys considering putting a flywheel weight or a Rekluse, or maybe thinking of selling your selling your F to get an FX for the woods, I would say just revalve your suspension, put the Rekluse clutch in, and you might be very, very happy. Yeah, you have to start the bike once in a while, but the bike is a lot lighter. You don't have to deal with the battery, and I would prefer that, you know, a lighter bike, more agile. Now, for all that weight I saved, you can have a larger fuel tank. So I really like this bike, although I miss not using the clutch. I could use the clutch, but you get used to not using it. Two ways to skin the cat, and whichever way you go, I don't think you will regret it. But I don't think it's required to sell your F and get an FX. That's what I'm trying to answer here. So should you sell it and get an FX? Probably not. If you want the electric start, maybe, but the performance of that FX you can easily get with a Rekluse clutch or just putting a flywheel weight. There's no reason to go FX, you know. This one has revalve suspension, and the suspension feels plusher than the FX. So the 18-inch rear wheel, would it come to play? Maybe, I don't know. I haven't pinch flatted yet. So all right, so that's the comparison. Really depends on what bike you already have. There's no reason to sell.